I'm joined by the wonderful Vicky Monk.
Middle. We didn't start that before.
So I was nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
I was reading AO's earnings report. Always something fun to do on a Saturday evening. It's good news. AO World's profits have hit a new record growth. Business upped its annual profit outlook. You've just acquired Music Magpie.
Have.
The Stockport-based business, re-commerce. I do remember their ads on TV once upon a time when I was little. You've just unveiled...
Was it books and DVDs, though?
Ah, yeah, I think it was CDs back in the day,
People
wasn't it?
still say that. Is that what you say in your books and DVDs?
Yeah, a little bit different now. And you've also unveiled plans, I guess not you personally, but the business has unveiled plans for its first ever shares buyback, £10 million in shares. Yep. So I think it's fair to say that something is going right. And we want to know what's going on underneath the hood, because when we spoke for the first time, you told me about your role, and it started with explaining a little bit about the kind of brand side, and you're talking about customer, and you're talking about AO.com, and then you're talking about how it plays into commercial, and I was, oh wait, you do all of that. And I think it says something quite interesting about the future of media and advertising, so we'll delve into that. Can you just explain a little bit about AO to get us started?
I can, yeah. It's always a good test of brand awareness. Don't worry, we won't do a poll of who knows what AO does and doesn't do. But we are in Manchester, so hopefully, I hope a lot of people have heard of AO at least, or maybe sing you the song AO Let's Go. That's a common thing. But yeah, we're an electrical goods retailer. We've actually been going since 2000. So we've just had our 25th year birthday in summer, and I think a lot of people don't probably appreciate how long we've been around.
Born right on the dot-com bubble.
Literally right on the dot-com bubble.
Right.
And part of the dot-com boom, actually, so we were talking about this the other day, you know, and so things like the Millennium Bug and what was going to happen. And at that time, John, our founder and CEO now, you know, was literally, no, let's go for it. You know, we can make a difference. And our mission at the time was about changing the face of the kitchen appliance industry, and about how we could sell big box items online. And I think a lot of people didn't believe it would be true. And I guess fast forward now 25 years, you know, we're now over £1 billion retailer. You know, and we, in our recent TV adverts, you know, we hang our hat very much on being the UK's most trusted electrical retailer, which is built on having just short of 900,000 reviews and a trust score rating of 4.9 on Trustpilot, which, you know, we believe to be pretty much globally best in class. But through those 25 years as a business, we've been obsessed about being customer focused. And very much service-led, and that's definitely an ethos that started out back in 2000 and still exists in the business today, and still is a huge part of our brand and advertising journey that we've been on.
And how long have you been at AO?
16 years.
16 years, okay. And has it changed much in the time you've been there?
Like I said, so absolutely, yeah, the business has changed massively. So I started out life when it was, you know, there was probably about 100 people there. We all did different jobs. We all got, you know, mucked into sort of helping, making things happen. But, you know, we've always been a business that's been relentlessly obsessed with customer and customer focus. You know, John literally drives that home today. You know, he still talks about that obsession of things still aren't right in the industry. How do we change things for the better? You know, how do we make a difference? How do we try and force brands to, you know, think about things differently? And so if I think about 16 years ago, that was there then and is today. And I think that's the brilliant part of being founder-led. And that's a massive part of why, you know, it's a very exciting place to work. You know, and look, you know, times have been up and down through that journey. You know, we've had a good few years, which has been amazing. But the few years prior to that were pretty difficult and tough. Right. So it hasn't all been plain sailing. You know, and if I still think about the jobs that we've got to do today, and certainly that I push with the team, you know, it's still about growing brand awareness. We started out life as selling kitchen appliances. Not many people know we also now sell TVs, mobile phones, you know, small appliances for your kitchen, hair care and the likes. And so we've still got a massive journey to do in growing our brand awareness. And our ultimate goal is, when it comes to buying electricals, think of AO when you think in electricals, and how do we get on that consideration list. And we still have to grow a brand then, we still have to grow a brand now, 25 years on.
So 16 years ago when you started, what was your role?
I was a commercial analyst 16 years ago.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
And just talk to us a little bit about your journey.
Wow, my journey. So yeah, I started out life as a commercial analyst. Like I said, I looked after a lot of the contact centre operations, so I'd do a lot of analysis around why customers were ringing us, what some of the issues were, how do we fix it, how do we get to root cause analysis. And really randomly, our supply chain analyst was leaving, and they said, you know what, you're quite good with numbers, do you mind just mucking into helping out with supply chain? So after I transitioned into supply chain, we didn't have a supply chain at the time, so we built a lot of that from scratch. There was a small team of us, so I led that for about 7 or 8 years. So I did a lot of the infrastructure around the operation that exists today. And then what we decided to do is we saw the value of bringing operations and customer together. They affect each other, and so a lot of our customer issues would start from operational execution or poor operational execution. And with that mantra of just customer first, I would lead down the road of, like you say, understanding why, how many products did we deliver on time and in full, and some of those KPIs. And so it kind of expanded from there. And when we pulled customer and brand, we pulled customer and operations together, brand came with it.
Right. Why was that? Why did you pull? Was there a particular reason customer and operations came together?
I think just being that brand and customer custodian that exists in the business. So every touch point now within my role, I always think and represent the customer. So whether that's on existing journeys, whether that's on new propositions that we're developing for the market, I think just having that broad view of whether it's an operational issue that exists, or actually we're looking at a new proposition to launch into the market, me just having that laser focus on customer and being customer first.
It's got quite different parts of the business, right? Like somebody who you would have in your operations team surely isn't going to be who you want to have in your customer or brand team.
Yeah, again.
Or are they?
It works.
Okay.
So I think if we look at it that way, so I understand the challenge. I think at the time where the brand was, we'd been through a big brand journey where we'd tried some things that hadn't worked for the brand. So for those that know AO, we'd done things like sponsorship of Britain's Got Talent, didn't quite deliver the results that we needed to, or maybe we'd got our expectations wrong. Our brand creative at the time had been on a journey, so we had done some quite creative adverts that worked initially, but customers still didn't understand what we sold. So like I said, they'd sing you the jingle, but actually what do we sell? Kitchen appliances. But we were on a journey, we had to change just that mindset of actually there's more to AO than just selling kitchen appliances, and that was a huge part of our growth. We needed to take share from other parts of other categories and other markets. And so just in that shift in mindset, we did a bit of a transition. So one of the first things I did when I went in was probably quite operationalised, and we just went through a bit of a brand repositioning, not too structural, but just made some changes, and we've sort of grown it from there. And then what we did is I then set out on, we've pulled brand and marketing now together. So again, we had a lot of friction between some of the teams that exist in brand and marketing. Actually pulling it all together under one umbrella.
So what are the kind of roles that sit under brand versus marketing in AO?
So traditionally, marketing sat separately, so they were responsible for look, feel and touch of the brand when you interacted with the AO and the smile, and then marketing traditionally would have done all the advertising and the campaign led. Now the two things sit together, and so we've got brand that still exists in the world that it does, and you've got advertising and campaign management. I also look after the creative execution, and I also look after now e-commerce and the on-site execution. And so as I see it, the importance of a customer seeing, feeling and touching something to do with your brand off-site is just as important when you land them on-site, that they understand that AO and those touch points exist. Well,
let's talk about that. Is there an average path to purchase in this modern world that we live in? Is there an average path to purchase for an AO customer?
No. I wish there was. It'd make all our lives easier.
Was there at some point?
No. Well, it certainly was easier than it probably is today. So I think in today's digital era, a path to purchase isn't linear. I think it would be nice if you could start at A and land at B really quickly and that path be a straight line. I think we'd all potentially be out of jobs. But ultimately for us, you've got different buying decisions, different buying habits by category. You could have distress purchase that sits in there. You've got product life cycle, so kitchen appliances. You don't wake up in the morning and think, oh, you know what, I'm going to buy myself a new washing machine today. You just don't, you know, and so when those things happen, you sort of start afresh, and you might not have bought a washing machine for 10 years. Where do you start? What technology exists, you know, and so that path to purchase is very different. The other thing that we see is that, and I use, so Google did something called the Messy Middle report, and they sort of update that, and they have done for a number of years now, but they talk about different trigger factors and influences on that path to purchase, and I think in the digital world that we now live in, it's so messy. And I say messy, unfortunately for retailers and brands. I think our job is a lot harder these days. I think going back 10 or 15 years, we were held in a lot higher esteem. I think brands and retailers, people don't trust as much as they did. They recognise the businesses are there to make money. You know, and so that trust element of our brand is really important as part of that. And how does that ethos come through in everything that we do? But that exploration phase of I'm going buying a product for a customer can go anywhere from, you know, peer groups to social medias. People love influencers these days. They've never met influencers, they've never met them, but they have such a huge influence on that purchase journey. You know, and so they're taking all different triggers from all different experiences, and then ultimately you then get down to a journey where you start to think about, right, well, I think I know roughly what I want to buy, or I've seen that and I really like it, right, why do I now find it? And that's where retailers come in. And so we have an ethos internally that is led by things like brilliant basics. So we coined the phrase brilliant basics, and that is just getting the fundamentals right at the bottom. So what does your range look like? How competitive is your pricing? When can I have it? What delivery options have you got? In our industry, things like, you know, can you come and install my washing machine while you're there? That's so important, and I think if the fundamentals of the business are right at the bottom, everything else can then be built on top. I think, you know, as part of that brand evolution, I think if you don't get those, what we would coin brilliant basics right, I think everything else on top can be a bit forgotten from a customer perspective.
And when you think about how the team, so could you just explain a little bit about how the team is structured now to give you that connected view of the customer that you need? Yeah,
so I effectively, in my job, as I see it, run one half of retail. So like I said, I run everything from brand advertising, e-commerce, creative, comms, CRM, and the more retail operations side of things. And I sit alongside a guy who is responsible for sales and commercial and trading. And how I see it is that we create positive friction between the two roles. And marketing is effectively the intersection that effectively you've got commercial on one side that's trying to create the demand, and we're there to deliver and ultimately drive that conversion number. That intersection, though, is led by a lot of the commercial data. So one of the beauties of how we work is I don't mark my own homework. And I think it's really important. So as much as I'd love to sit here and say, marketing's brilliant, and look, the results all look great, I think having an independent voice that does that. And so the commercial team, they'll look after web analytics, they'll look after our econometrics modelling, they'll look after our attribution modelling, they'll also do our lower funnel marketing because it's so commercially led. And so that's how we sort of separate the two out. And that independence helps just create that element of challenge, debate, thought.
So there are elements, for example, you know, PPC or whatever, that will just sit in the commercial team and won't be within your kind of remit. Right, okay. But are you able to tell us what those are? Those elements of that the commercial team would take that your team would not work on?
So literally, acquisition and PPC.
Right, okay.
Sits in commercial.
Yeah.
And things like affiliates sit in commercial, and everything else sits under what you traditionally class as marketing.
Yeah. And how does that allow? How do you join the dots then between your team, the commercial team? How does it all kind of work together? And is that how much of that is new? Is it still evolving? Is it working really well? Where would you like to see it grow to?
So it works incredibly well because our relationships are built on trust and have to be. I'm relatively comfortable that, you know, the independence for me helps my storytelling. So if I can get commercial validation that isn't mine, ultimately when I come to have conversations, and I know you've got a CEO conversation, I think, coming up next,
Yeah.
you know, it helps validate that actually there's independence to what we're doing. And so when it comes to things like brand investment, you know, somebody else sitting there and saying, well, actually, I've looked at the econometrics, this is how your channels are performing, this is where we believe you should be making more investment. Yes, I can challenge, and yes, we do challenge, and yes, we have debates, and yes, we have fallouts, and sometimes it's not all plain sailing, but ultimately the numbers are the numbers. I started out life in a commercial setting, and I think that is value add to my role today because I'm not a traditional marketeer that's come from a creative background. I'm somebody who's come from more of a commercial background. So I understand the importance of the numbers, and I think that is key to the role and the success.
And what role does media and advertising play in the wider marketing mix?
A massive part, honestly. You know, like I said right at the very beginning, we've still got a job to do in growing our brand awareness, and so we still need media, advertising, and all the channels that exist in order to help us on that journey. I think one of the journeys we've been going through over the last 2, 3, 4 years is questioning the value of each one of those channels. Take linear TV, I'm not sure how much, I've not been here for the full day, but I'm not sure how much debate's been had, but we've pulled away a little bit from more traditional linear TV advertising. So we'll still do direct response TV ads.
Is there a reason why you've pulled away from linear?
Yeah, so direct response, you can see a direct correlation between £50 off product and sales. Our branded adverts on linear TV, we just have a bit of a mantra internally that, and I know Peter Field was on this morning, and I love listening to Peter and everything that he talks about, but our ads have become very functional. They're a functional ad. And we wholeheartedly believe that doing the storytelling we need to do about our brand needs to go beyond just a branded TV ad where we're trying to get a message of, yes, we do delivery and yes, we sell these products. So we still have that job to do, but we believe other channels do that job more effectively than TV.
And which channels, if linear's coming down, what channels are on the rise? And are there any new channels in the mix?
So, well, I wouldn't say new. So radio works really effectively for us. So we would choose radio over linear TV, traditionally when it comes to some of the more branded adverts. In terms of new channels, not necessarily new, but one of the things that we found is being a pure digital retailer, we have no physical presence. And when it comes to things like branded advertising, we have a belief, and we're still going through this test and learn journey with it, but we've gone back to a bit of print. So in the digital era that exists, it's quite crowded and quite noisy. When I think about, everybody's got an over-reliance on channels like CRM and communications and emails traditionally. As I think about CRM, you know, it's very crowded. We all wake up in the morning and go, I've got 300 emails. How do I get through the ones that are really relevant to me and the ones that aren't? And so we look at all of our engagement metrics, and it's an important channel, and it's a free channel ultimately. So it has its place, and, you know, but ultimately, we want to create a bit of a physical presence about our brand, and we believe that's how we can bring our brand to life. So we've gone back into print. We've been doing it. We're just coming up to 12 months. So I think as a retailer, we're one of the biggest print retailers at the moment. So we've created a brochure, and the value of the brochure for us is not only doing the job of look at all these electrical items that we sell outside of just kitchen appliances, as we're well known for, but it also helps us do some storytelling. Okay. So storytelling about the brand, storytelling about supplier brands, about product, about how can we become useful in product information, useful hints and tips. And I guess that halo effect of going beyond just a transactional brand is important to us. We want to create loyalty, you know, with customers. We want to create a customer base that, you know, really trusts the AO brand, really thinks about the AO brand. We've got sponsorships as well. So our physical presence of sponsorships is really important to us. And again, retailers traditionally in our industry have a lot of heritage. You know, and see, we've got to do that to try and counteract that heritage and the heritage within those brands of people just sleepwalk into stores to go and find their next electrical item. You know, how do we stop them in their tracks in doing that? You know, and so hopefully we bring the brand to life through other mediums like print, like sponsorship, as well as being really supported by your traditional channels as well, digital display.
That's brilliant. And As I told you all, I had a great time on Saturday night reading through AO's financial report, and I saw a line in it that said there's a 10% increase in advertising costs. It's flat year on year, but there's that increase that you're seeing. It's not coming down. If you wanted more money from your CFO, just as we're about to pass into the next panel, what's it like pitching for it? What would you need to prove to your CFO to get more cash?
So for me, I guess the importance of pitching into a CFO is understanding what keeps them awake at night. You know, I've built credibility with our CFO, which is good and supportive, but that's been built over years. But not to offend any CFOs, but their job ultimately for me is to manage the budgets and the numbers of the business, and ultimately manage risk. And it's not profit and sales that make a business go bust, it's cash. And so I know how important cash is to our CFO. Therefore, I need to think about, you know, making sure I've got really robust and transparent ROIs, making sure he understands how our investments are being made and why. You know, I think for him, I reframe the question, so I wouldn't go in to pitch for more money. I'd reframe the question in terms of if we had more money to spend, where would we spend it? And how prepared are we to have that discussion tomorrow? If the CFO or CEO came to me and asked me that question, I should be prepared to be able to say, well, look, I believe it needs to be here, here, and here. Actually, you know, maybe in radio we feel like we've got enough investment, but actually into some of the more digital channels, or maybe more, some of the, that's where print came from. So actually our spend has gone up because we've started to invest in print, which is a new channel for us.
Right. If there was one channel that you could choose that you'd like to spend more money in, what would you choose?
Oh, that's so hard. That's really tough. You've put me on the spot there. Difficult. So I think you can always spend more into digital channels, I think, because they're slightly easier to understand their ROI. I think everybody naturally defaults into places like Google, but for my KPIs in terms of brand awareness and consideration, I still think we've got a top of funnel job to do. So I would say your traditional channels, like we've been doing a lot of always on advertising in radio, bits of TV where it feels relevant, out of home, and the holy grail for me is that we've got always on advertising, and we've got a nice spread of advertising channel mix, which hopefully helps them when it comes to our on-site and off-site mix. So I've not quite answered your question, I know.
No, it was great, thank you. A huge round of applause, please, for Vicky Monk.